welcome everybody. Welcome to Viva La Trails Day at Tiger Mountain. Thank you for coming. Today we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Issaquah Alps Trails Club and 40 years of advocacy, trail building, and conservation here in the Tiger Mountain area. 40 years ago, Harvey Manning had a dream. He had a dream that young and old, male and female, red and yellow, black and white, could all take a hike to the mountaintop. Oh wait, the mountaintop over there. Well, that's the great thing about Issaquah Alps is you can point in almost any direction and there's a mountaintop somewhere in that general direction. Well, the dream was that they could take a hike to the mountaintop right from their own neighborhood. Right from their own neighborhood, walk into the wilderness within. The wilderness within their own neighborhood. That's the vision for the Issaquah Alps and the domain that we support as the Issaquah Alps Trails Club. Well, that reality has come true here for those of us that are lucky enough to live here in the Issaquah Alps neighborhood, and it's a wonderful thing. Well, that didn't happen by accident. It happened through the perseverance of the public and advocacy organizations like the Issaquah Alps Trails Club, and of course the land management entities, the City of Issaquah and the Department of Natural Resources. We're all part of that story, and today we're celebrating that 40 years of perseverance that have brought us to where we are today. But our work is never done, and the challenge continues, and we must, if we want this to be available to future generations, well, we have to keep that perseverance going so that our future generations can also enjoy that wilderness within. So we have a few speakers today to reflect upon that 40 years of perseverance. We'll start out here with David Kapler, our VP of Advocacy for the Issaquah Alps Trails Club, former president of the club and hike leader, and well, I could go on. And Mayor Mary Lou Pauley from the City of Issaquah will talk about the city's role in all this, and then Katie Woosley from the Department of Natural Resources is here as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to David Kapler.
Well, welcome to Tiger Mountain. I think the name Tiger likely came from what the residents around here used to call cougars. And I remember talking to Mr. Hailstone, who lived right there at Exit 20, and I was up here one night kind of checking on some things as my volunteer DNR job, and I met him, and he talked about hearing the tigers scream, and I guess cougars, the screaming of tigers is pretty strong, and I'm guessing that's what how the tiger came. We know cougar came from a real estate developer that didn't think Newcastle was quite the message you want to get across when you think of the old movies of the coal mining in Newcastle in England. Tiger was the first hiking place for a lot of people coming from Seattle. In 1966, the Mountaineers did their 100 hikes in western Washington, and the number one hike was Tiger Mountain. In those days, there was a lookout station up there, or lookout tower, and I remember going up to that lookout tower when I was in high school, I guess it was, and cold between Christmas and New Year's, real cold, clear day, beautiful views, but by the time we got to the bottom after it, our water left in our water bottles was frozen. It was so cold, but it was pretty cool. It actually had parking problems. The book was so popular and that hike was so popular, and originally the hike started in Preston. And we never have any parking problems at trailheads now, but in those days we did. And one of the biggest issues, of course, is parking and how expensive it is to put trailheads where you have wetlands, steep slopes, creeks, and all those things that bring people to that area, and then trying to find a place you can actually park them. Tiger was actually known to a lot of people because of Irving Petit, who lived off of the the Tiger Mountain Road, who wrote a number of books, and one was Life on Tiger Mountain, another one was Mr. B. He maybe, and even Harvey Manning didn't get one of his books written in Japanese. Irving Petit's books were so popular, even in Japan, that was translated. Poo-Poo Point kind of activated people when that was cleared by Weyerhaeuser in the 70s, and that was kind of got people going about thinking more about tiger. This, right where we are now, is actually pretty interesting. There's 400 acres up here that the city owned, and they've owned it for a long time. And that's because their water supply up into the early 1970s was a bunch of leaking springs on the side hill on the north side along what's now I-90 along US 10. And in the old days, if you want to go through Devil's Club nettles and salmonberries, you can still see it where these little creeks coming out of the hillside, the springs, were dammed up, and then there were water tanks and reservoirs. So that was the city's water supply. So there wasn't development here, even though it was very close. And that led to kids and other people coming up here a lot. Not you talk to anybody that grew up in Issaquah, they can attest to things, inappropriate behavior that occurred in tradition. Okay, so this was a place, lots of trails, and the trail system kind of grew up the side of the mountain, up onto Tiger. So we had a lot of natural allies in keeping this as a place for trails in the lakes, Round Lake and Tradition Lake, and then the trails working up onto the mountains. So it's kind of a logical thing to carry on that, and we kind of, Issaquah Alps Trails Club, kind of adopted that in 1979 when we started. Things started happening real quick. In 1980, the state election caused Brian Boyle to become the new Commissioner of Public Lands. And Brian Boyle was expecting to do a lot different than Bert Cole, who had been Land Commissioner forever. And in 1981, 1 year after he was elected, he proposed a Tiger Mountain State Forest. And he worked to consolidate all the land, because the land up here was half Weyerhaeuser in a checkerboard fashion and half DNR. He managed to trade Weyerhaeuser basically off the mountain, except for the valuable property in West Tiger 1, 2, and 3, because of the radio leases and all were very valuable. So that, on the map over here, you see that zigzag, that's still Weyerhaeuser for their radio sites. But Brian was able to get all of the property into a state forest. And then in '82, there was a citizen advisory committee that came up with how to manage that state forest, and it included Ruth Keyes, famous environmentalist, and Bill Longwell, Harvey Manning, and the one survivor of that group, Tom Meckler, who spoke last week at our history event. There were 19 members, and in 1984 they came up with, working with DNR, with a recommended management guidelines. Now that's not real strong. That's not required management policies or anything. It was pretty vague. Fortunately, we had great people working, like Doug McClellan, working with DNR, that managed to make those recommended management guidelines really be good, and gave them flexibility to do things really well. And so things kept moving on. In 1987, the state legislature approved a concept of a natural resource conservation area, a state natural resource conservation area. And when that happened in '87, there were 4 sites in the state. The closest one to here was Mount Si. But in 1990, the West Tiger NRCA was established, and that's all this land up above us that, and around here, mixed in here, and above us, that was state land. Remember the 400 acres the city had. In 1992, the city came up with their, and you got to get the order right, the Issaquah Area Wildlife and Recreation Trails Plan. It was very definite that wildlife came before the trails. But in 1993, the city said, this NRCA concept the state has is really good. Let's put that designation on the Tradition Plateau, our 400 acres. And so we have that level of protection for the city property and for the state property now. The city's planning efforts, a comprehensive plan, all the things they're kind of doing are all in support of what good stuff happening up here. There's been recent acquisitions. East Sunset, the property there where you're actually the Trespasser Trail that got you up to the plateau from there has been acquired by DNR with help from the city. And Exit 20, all but one parcel has been acquired there, and hopefully at Exit 20 we're going to have some kind of gateway to the whole Mountain to Sound Greenway. I got some DNR people here, so I've got a chance to tell them what to do. Biggest complaint I get, no view left on West Tiger 3, okay? And that's complicated by Weyerhaeuser property and that natural resource conservation area, right? Which we fought so hard to have, but now Poo-Poo Point parking is a big problem. And it's helped by the Trailhead Direct, but it's a huge problem. And one of the things we're trying to do is improve the trail access from Issaquah High School to Poo-Poo Point and make that a little more efficient and better trail. And that would cut, because we got a lot of parking at Issaquah High School on weekends. The city, our park director back there, Jeff, is a fan of a bridge at the city park at the south end of the city connecting over to Squaw Mountain over Issaquah Creek. And connecting Squaw to Tiger would really be great. And that's part of the city's vision. We're working on, DNR is expanding the Raging River Forest, getting those lands that are kind of hard to serve when there are lots of smaller private parcels, getting that consolidated. They're doing a great job. One of the biggest things that will change what can happen here on Taylor Mountain to the south, Raging River to the east, and Tiger Mountain itself will be improvements to SR 18, which is now a death trap and difficult to make left turns, right turns to get in and off of that road. With big improvements there, trail connections connecting to Taylor and to the Raging will be huge. So following what happens with improvements to 18 will be great for getting to get out and enjoy the area and also be much safer in doing it. So lots of great thanks to DNR and the city for the wonderful work you're doing here, and thank you very much.
Going to adjust this down a little bit. Dave's a little bit taller than I am. My name is Mary Lou. I'm the mayor of the city of Issaquah, and I'm really honored and grateful that I also got asked to join this panel. I'm embarrassed that I have to follow my favorite environmental and open space historian, Dave, because he has the best stories. But I have learned so much from him about the history of the area and all of the things that had to happen in order to make the amazing trail system, the amazing wildland area we have here. First, I just want to say congratulations to Issaquah Alps Trails Club. 40 years. 40 years. And strong. This is a club that is strong, that is invigorated, that has new ideas going forward, and knows that we have a lot of work to do. I'm really proud to be a part of your organization. I also want to thank you for all the work you have done. Without the advocacy from the Issaquah Alps Trails Club, we just wouldn't have this. This just wouldn't be possible. So thank you for everything you've done, and you still have stuff to do, so don't run away. We have more work. My outdoor historian provided me with some useful information that predates my time in town. He mentioned it a little bit, and that is that a long time ago, when the city was a lot smaller, our drinking water supply did come off of Tiger Mountain. Those springs that Dave was talking about was how we provided drinking water to our residents. We had a much smaller number of residents, so that supply was adequate at the time. The kind of benefit that probably wasn't apparent right away was it automatically made us step into stewardship, because we have to make sure that the area around our water supply is protected. And so we got into that stewardship mindset, and that's amazing. Since then, the city has added water supply by drilling wells on the valley floor, by buying some water from Seattle. But now we've moved into a different view of what this could be. In speaking with one of our former mayors, I heard the story of how when this was zoned commercial, we might have put a golf course in up here. And I gasped when I heard that. When my family moved here in '93 and we came from another country, we were doing our research for us, a family with 2 small children. And the reason we picked Issaquah first wasn't the hills and the beauty and everything that was here. It was because they have great schools. But we stayed because of the hills. So they absolutely mesmerize you and capture you. And if you become a family that hikes and plays up here, it's really hard to leave. So we thought we were going to be here for a couple of years. And 25 years later, we're still playing. And I don't think we're ever going anywhere. It's just amazing up here. I also wanted to talk a little bit about DNR. DNR has been an amazing partner between the city and DNR, and the work that's been done to acquire pieces of land, to put these protective controls in place so we're sure that we're always going to have them as open space for the animals and for us is amazing. And besides that, I thought it might be nice today too. I see some of our other great community groups here that are supporting this event. I want to say thank you to Save Cougar Mountain. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for putting all your energy into preserving some amazing land on another one of our Issaquah Alps. Thank you to the Kiwanis. Kiwanis stepped up today, providing refreshments for everybody. And just a little personal story on my part. I know we're a trailhead city. I know that's what we call ourselves. But when I'm not in our community, when I'm somewhere else in another state or another city, I call us a trail town because the trails don't. It's not just the trailheads are in town. There are trails all through Issaquah. There's urban trails. There's the trails up here in the plateau. If you like to hike and walk, this is the place to live. I love our little trail town, and I'm very honored to get to speak today. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Well, hi there, everyone. My name's Katie Woolsey, and I work for the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm really honored to be here to speak today. I'm really glad Dave and others and Ed are here today because I definitely don't know all the 40 years of history that has gone on here. But I just wanted to start off by sharing with you, when I first started working for DNR, it was very apparent that the reason this place here is so special and unique to work is because of Issaquah. It's because of the Issaquah Alps, and it's because of the Issaquah Alps Trails Head. And they were instrumental in the creation of Tiger Mountain State Forest. The West Tiger Mountain Natural Resource Conservation Area is designated for conservation the year I was born. And then following the city of Issaquah, following the city of Issaquah, purchasing and protecting Tradition Plateau, and it's actually the only city-owned property that is designated a natural resources conservation area, which is pretty incredible. And I think all this just shows the true partnership, and we wouldn't all be here today if it wasn't for partnership. No single entity could have done all this, and it's only when we work together that we can make this happen and get things done. So I think it's really important to remember that in the next 40 years. We have our challenges ahead of us, but mostly I'm looking forward to the success and exciting projects we have. Light rail will be here in 2040, I think, and which is really exciting and an amazing opportunity. Rerouting trails to closer to the city of Issaquah, King County's Trailhead Direct program, and really working on those final acquisitions that have taken us 30, 40 years, and we're still working on it. And it's pretty incredible and inspiring, and I'm just really happy to be here. And so I think we should think about that in the next 40 years. So thanks so much on behalf of DNR, and Viva La Trails.
Well, why don't we wrap up with Ed? You want to tell us a little bit about current trail activity, trail work activity?
Well, I'm a new guy. I came out here in 1969 to go to graduate school, and also to go climb mountains, and I stayed. And in the beginning, I kind of saw all the cars parked out here, and I said, who would ever want to go? You know, there's so many people there. It just wasn't a place I would wanted to go. Well, at one point I ended up getting laid off from where I worked, and anyway, there was about 10 years in there where I didn't do anything except go to work and come home and go to work. I finally said, "What's wrong with this picture?" But I'm also 10 years older. And I said, maybe I should go hiking instead. And so I decided to come up here one winter. And I got a map, and I knew everybody went up West Tiger 3. So I said, let me find another way around. And I saw 3 other people until I got to the top of West Tiger 3. And I said, I could get used to hiking here. So I started hiking, but I noticed a lot of the trails were brushy. And I said, oh, in that 10 years is when all the money got siphoned off for trail maintenance. But before that, the Forest Service took care of all the trails. They were great. Well, winter came, spring came, nobody was working on the trails. Summer came, nobody was working on the trails. Fall came again, nobody was working on the trails. And I said, I got to do something about this. So I went out and bought some tools and started doing trail work, and eventually ran into Scott Siemens, who's the past person in charge of trail work for the Alps. And so I got recruited, and I did work with them, and I also did work by myself. A lot of the brush trails, that was me. And then a couple of years ago, George Potter had this idea of, why don't we resurrect, yeah, when you get old, work parties. And so George and myself talked to TNR, would you like to give us some projects you'd like us to do? And so we started doing that, and we've been doing that ever since. So that's about 3 or 4 years, and we've done reroutes on the TMT and the Issaquah Hobart Railroad Grade Trail, and right now we're working on Dwight's Way for people who know where the trails are, and we just keep coming out and doing the work. And if you're interested, contact us. And typically we do work during the week because we're all retired. But anyway, that's what, and we get a lot of, it's nice to be out there and people come by and thank us for our work. That's all we need, is people telling us they like what we're doing for them. So that's it.
Thanks, Ed, for that update. Now it's time for our little motto. So, hikers of the world unite. For trails we will fight. We shall persist, we shall prevail. Viva the trails! Okay, everybody, viva the trails!